I was at my favorite dog friendly store. Shout out to Feeds and Needs in Bridgewater. I'm drunk with power with these buttons. I'm just drunk with power. Anyway, I was there. They were having a sale. It was pretty fun. And I'm not going to lie, it was one of those sales where, like, they're getting rid of stuff before inventory. And so there was like buckets of things. And I was like digging through things because I like me a deal. And as I was doing that, I didn't even realize that someone was behind me just kind of petting my dog. Not completely not paying attention. And the woman said to me, "Oh my gosh, I wish that my dog could do this, like just be able to be around all these other dogs and be social like that. I wish I had a social dog. My dog's scared of everything." And I was like, "Well, we don't really necessarily want our dog to be social." And she was like, "No, I would." And I was like, "Okay, well, I mean, she's not here asking me questions about it." But I thought this is something I could talk about on the podcast. So that's what we're going to talk about today, my friend. Why you don't want your fearful dog to be social and what you actually want instead. That's right. We're talking about sociality today, my friends. Let's get into it. Are you worried that your fearful dog may hurt someone or something else? Do you have to prepare just to take a walk around the block? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I too had that dog. The one that you could only walk at nighttime when no one else was around. And I felt ashamed. And oh gosh, I wish that people could just see the dog that I know and love. I wanted the confidence to be able to walk my dog and not have to worry about who or what was around the corner. And I kept telling myself that if I just keep doing obedience drills and distracting with treats, that things would get better. Until I found the secret. Fear is not something that you can train out of a dog. In this podcast, you will find tips to help build your dog's confidence naturally, communication and understanding to foster that trust, and how to address those fear-based behaviors effectively so that you can enjoy a stress-free life with your dog. So if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners, grab your notebook, and let's get to it. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Thursday. Oh, I got a little bit excited. A little bit excited. It's Thursday today. This is the second podcast this week. Why? Because we're having so much fun. We should do it more often. And that's what I decided. So glad that you are here joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I learned from my mentor, Nelson Hodges. If you have been following me for a while, you know that I have a mentor. His name is Nelson. And this was a concept that I learned quite a few years ago and have been sharing it with others since, because I think it helps solidify some things. And it also helps demystify this idea of the misunderstood concept of socialization. And Nelson kind of put it in a different way for me and kind of helped me reframe it. And so I wanted to do that for you today. As I mentioned, I was in the store and this lady was like, "I wish my dogs were social like that." And I was like, okay, but that's not really what we're looking for. Now, I should point out, of course, because I ratted myself out in the opening there, but I'm just going to confess things. I'm going to confess some things to you right now. I wasn't paying attention. I was not paying attention. But the reason I wasn't paying attention was because of the dogs that I had. At the time of that story, I had Nigel and Dakota. Both dogs are high social drive dogs. Both dogs are okay with both people and other dogs. So it affords me the luxury of not having to closely pay attention to them. If I had have had, say, Rue with me, I would have been a little bit more discerning on letting, people just come up and pet on my dog, obviously. But I digress. I just wanted to point that out because I'm like, I just realized I told people to do what I tell people not to do, which, but that's why. Many dogs, different personalities, different doganalities, and as such, things are a little bit different. That's actually kind of the beauty of having a multi-dog pack, right? You have different relationships with each dog based on the dog that you have. And it's an art. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about what I was talking about, though. This idea, this misconception of what socialization is, and more importantly, what it means to be social, and how we actually don't even really want that. And we are, I've talked about this before about what socialization is and isn't, but this is just another way to look at it. So, my good friend and colleague and mentor, Nelson, likes to break up sociology in four different categories. So, if you want to get a pen and a paper, just kind of jot these down, you can. So, the first sociology concept is the idea of being antisocial. Antisocial, which essentially just means that you are or your dog is against interaction. They don't want any interaction with any other dog. Okay. And we do see that quite a bit, especially dogs, especially with our fearful dogs. They might now be considered an anti-social dog that is against interaction, doesn't want to have other dogs around them. And then next category is asocial, which essentially means that your dog is indifferent about interaction, right? So we used to call these dogs independent explorers when they were in our play groups. These were dogs that weren't necessarily against interaction, but they also weren't actively seeking for it, and they just were kind of indifferent about it. These dogs in the play groups just kind of be going around doing their own thing. And as long as dogs weren't like in their face bugging them, they didn't mind other dogs around. They just didn't necessarily want to play with them or to interact with them. And some of us might have dogs in our house that are like that. This can happen, for example, as your dog matures or gets a little bit older, or maybe is geriatric, and let's say you get a younger dog, perhaps they're okay with the younger dog being around. They don't necessarily want to play with the younger dog, right? They might now be what we would call asocial. The next category would be social, right? Which is what many of us confuse and think that we are striving for, right? You'll hear it all the time, like, he's friendly, or my dog is social, or your dog isn't very social. We use this word social as the benchmark of what we actually want for our dog. But social, as Nelson described to me, is essentially a dog that wants interaction, but only for their own purposes, only for their own benefit. And so these dogs, especially in play groups and whatnot, these would be the dogs that aren't necessarily reading the room. They're coming up, they're in every dog's face. They're like, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play, because they get off on it. They don't care what the other dog thinks or says about it. They will, persist and bug and bother. They're not, as I say, they're not reading the other dog's body language or energy to know whether or not that other dog is in it with them. Those are actually social dogs. They're what we call the he's friendly dogs, the ones that are charging over at your dog while it's on a leash, hiding behind your back, and the dog's running up. They're not reading the room. So we actually don't want dogs like that. We create dogs like that by some of the socialization techniques and tactics that we thought were what we were supposed to be doing, right? When we first got our puppy, and everyone was like, make sure you go out and see lots of people and meet lots of dogs and let lots of people touch your dog. We created in the dog's mind this idea that every single dog we get to go play with, and every single person will want to pet us. And so in essence, we create, yes, indeed, a social dog, but that's actually not what we want. So what do we want? I kind of alluded to it in last episode when I was talking on Monday. But what we actually want is we want what's called a pro-social dog. Pro-social means that the dog is seeking interaction for the betterment of the collective. When I say collective, it reminds me of like Star Trek and the Borg. The Next Generation. That just took me back to college right there. The Borg. But you get what I'm saying. They are interested in doing the interaction for the betterment of everybody involved. And so these are dogs that are reading body language. These are dogs that are like asking permission, like, is it okay if I play with you? And what happens if I ask and you say it's okay? Then I'm going to follow the rules of engagement when it comes to play. I'm not going to bully over you. These dogs are going to do things and, like, for the betterment of the actual social unit. And that is actually what we should be striving for. And most importantly, we want to include ourselves in that equation. And that's the hardest part, because there's lots of dogs out there that are pro-social to other dogs. They play well with other dogs. They ask, they engage properly. When they're told off by another dog, they don't take it personally. They just go, okay, sorry, no problem. I'm gonna go play with someone else. Like, there's lots of dogs that are pro-social with other dogs, but not necessarily pro-social with people. So we want to actually create a dog that is pro-social with us, a one that looks to us to say, like, are you involved in this? Are you with me in this? Now, we can create that many ways, and I talk a lot about that in many of my programs. This idea of engaging in the dog's world, like a dog, starting to see the dog through the dog's eyes, so that we have a dog that thinks that we are awesome fun. And so, like, a great example of this would be, maybe you've heard, I'm not assuming you've heard this. Maybe you've heard people talk about thresholds. And in some, stricter kind of training, you might hear people say things like, yeah, the dog shouldn't pass the threshold first. Like, you should always pass through first. And for me, I actually don't care about that. I don't care about my dog passing through a threshold first or not. What I look for is that if I open the door and my dog rushes out because we're going for a walk or we're going into the backyard or whatever it is, if I open the door and the dog rushes out, I'm looking for, do they stop and turn and say, are you coming with? That is what I'm looking for. A dog that wants me to be a part of it with them. A dog that is actively going, this thing happened. Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about it? And for fearful dogs, that is my ultimate goal. So for the lady that was at the store and saying, oh gosh, I'd never be able to do this, or I wish that my dog would be able to, to do what your dogs are doing, that's actually not the goal. That's not the goal at all. See, let's call a spade a spade. There are some dogs, like my Noofs, that are high social drive dogs. They haven't had, knock on wood, and grateful for all of this, but they haven't had any traumatic incident that has made them fearful. So they're able to handle that. But that does not mean that I cannot bring my fearful dogs out. In fact, the other day I did bring Dakota and Nigel and Rue back to that store. The difference is that I'm not expecting Rue to be social. I'm not saying that through all the work that I've done to build up our relationship and help her was about her all of a sudden becoming a confident dog. She was born an innately unconfident dog. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I did do through all of the work that I did, building up my relationship with this dog, was so that the next time she had a fearful exposure, instead of having an explosive reaction of, oh my God, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Instead of that, now she goes, oh, that was scary. And she turns to me and says, this is freaking me out. What are we going to do about it? And that is a beautiful thing. That allows me to be able to take Rue into places and know that she's not going to just freak out and lunge and bark and snap. She's actually going to be like, this person's freaking me out. She's going to ask me for help and I'm going to step in. I'm always advocating for her. I don't let people pet her. On the rare occasion when I have people that understand the assignment, when I say she's people shy, this is what my dog needs from you. If you really must touch her, this is what she needs from you. And if I am confident that the people that she is around know what I'm talking about, understand the assignment, I may let Rue go and meet them. There's a difference, right? I will let Rue decide if she is comfortable doing it. And Rue has surprised me on many occasions with the things that she can do because I am working through that 3-step system to help build her confidence naturally. And it is the confidence that she has in me. So I still get a life of inclusion with my dogs. I still get a life where I can take my dogs to places. I can take Rue to an outdoor cafe. Do I have to make sure that humans aren't, pushing her boundaries? Absolutely, I do. I might have to be a little bit more aware. I can't be the way that I was while shopping through the bargain bins, just ignoring my dogs and letting everybody come up and hug them. I can't do that. But that doesn't mean that I can't have a life of inclusion with my dogs, and you can too. So there you go. I hope that made sense to everybody. The idea of sociality brought to you by my mentor, Nelson. It's a different way to look at it, a different way to look at what it is that we're actually trying to achieve with our dogs, that we don't want a social dog. You don't want a social dog. You don't want a dog running up doing whatever they want because they feel like it. That's not what they want. You want a dog that's polite, that asks for play, that is not going to barge over and knock somebody down the stairs. We don't want that dog. That dog's crazy. Okay? So, if you want more information, if you're like, hey, Tracy, how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I go through the steps? I'm going to actually be talking about the 3-step system in some upcoming episodes. So make sure you're following for that. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. We're going to go over that here on the podcast. Should we start that next? No, I have to have my conversation with Paisley. It'll be soon. It'll come soon. Listen, if you enjoyed this episode, can you do me a favor? If you haven't already, can you do me a favor and just give me a 5-star written review on Apple? Because it does help push the podcast out to more and more people. And that's the ultimate goal. I want to reach as many people as I can. I want to help as many people and dogs that I can. So if you could do that for me, that'd be great. If you're on Spotify, leave me a comment on these episodes because now you can do that, which is pretty cool. And as always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks you're amazing. And so do I. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and should never replace the advice of hands-on professional training. If you are someone who is struggling with your dog's behavior, please reach out to a professional in your area for help. Okay, I think that's it. Bye for now.